Keyboard warrior, come out to play. 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 Keyboard warrior, come out to play.
Steve, you will fall in love with me. You will take me away from this place.
Full disclosure, news and commentary number 153, 153, 153, 153, 153, he. A little different intro. What's the commentary going to be about? It's going to be me. I put together a little thing, this full disclosure, which I don't know if I've ever had so many people contact me about when's full disclosure happening. It took a while to put together the last sequence, which will count as the commentary. I will speak in a serious way before the commentary, and then the commentary itself is just pure, stupid, awesome fun, and answering the question, what happened? I did a thing. I did a thing for you. We're at 153, which means in 3 weeks we will have our 3-year anniversary of full disclosure news and commentary. Pretty great. We're going to talk about the wrestling news. It was a huge weekend in Georgia wrestling. I would argue that it's one of the biggest in the history of Georgia wrestling. Steve, how can you say that? You'll see. You'll see. I have an unboxing. Very excited about it. I'm going to get to that. Then I'm going to get to the news. Then I'm going to get to the rather serious thing I want to talk about, in person I want to address. And then we'll have a commentary, which will... I shouldn't call this out. It may end up the stuff of legend. When one has an idea and one has the will to execute it, and knowing I have an audience for this gives me the will to execute. So thank you very, very much. By the way, I have finished Drew Blood's book. I will say offhand, just as a general note, it is great. I enjoyed it very much. I've read it twice. I've taken notes and marked the book up so I can do a written review and a video review. I apologize to Drew Blood here formally that it has taken so long. However, my life, this is what my life looks like. I work at least an 8-hour shift somewhere. I have 2 different jobs that basically are both full-time jobs. And some days I work both. So this weekend, for perspective, let me see, make sure I'm getting this right. On Friday, Friday evening, I worked from 5 till 1:30 in the morning. Then I got the call about the drama that happened at Southern Honor betwixt wrestling personalities. I'll just say that. So the hour of sleep I normally would have gotten from like 1 till 2 in the morning when I had to wake up for my next job, I didn't get that. So at 2, I had to get ready and then go because my other job is at the airport. And so I had to get there by 4. And then I worked from 4 till afternoon, like 12:30. and then I went home and took a nap, got a couple hours of sleep, and then was back at work at 5, and then I worked until 1 or 2. Yeah. So if I look a little tired, that's why. But if I look good, it's the haircut, and I've been losing weight and working out like mad. My mud run is coming up. I thought it was the 22nd. It turns out it's the 19th. I went and dug and actually found it on my Google Calendar, and I went, holy crap, that's in a week and a half, running through the mud. I think I'm ready for it. I'm excited to do it, and but every day I work, either 8 hours or about 16. And then still taking the kids to school and all that kind of stuff. Their spring break starts on Friday. All right, let's get to this unboxing. I know what this is. This is not something that was sent to me. Well, obviously it was officially sent to me. It was something that I ordered. It's a rare thing when I actually order a wrestling related thing, but this is a notable exception. It's my boy Ron Nemi. It's my boy Ron Nemi. Look at how cool this is. I love Ron, and I wanted to support him, and makes me feel good. Ron, super cool. Let's talk about these shows. I want to talk first about the top drawing show of the weekend, and it was Mucha Lucha. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about Southern Honor extensively. Southern Honor, that show needs to get love, because obviously the incident that happened after the show, which is going to be the focus of a lot of this episode, takes away. Let's just be honest. It takes away from their accomplishment, but their accomplishment, I'm not going to take away, in the sense that I'm going to talk about what Southern Honor accomplished. But we got to be honest. Mucha Lucha outdrew everybody. I tried to get an official number from Ricardo. All I got the indication was it was one of the biggest they've ever done. Now, the biggest they've ever done is in the realm of 1,400. So, and looking at those pictures, I think it's safe to say they drew well over 1,000. If I had to put a number on it, I would say 1,200. That was with all their VIPs sold out at $80 a pop. General admission was $60, and then kids were $25. Do that fucking math and blow yourself away. And the show seemed like it went very well. Southern Fried drew 350. So let's do the math. That's $1,550. Nick Patrick's show debuted and drew 200. GIPW from the Sunday before, if that starts your week, drew 130. And Wrestling United drew 110. And then Southern Honor drew 519. Folks, mind-blowing. Georgia Wrestling, and then Action drew 350 for a highly regarded show that I heard a ton about. Folks, people can bitch, moan, and complain all they want. When you are pulling in almost 3,000 people to watch wrestling in the state on a weekend, can't fucks with it. It's an incredible accomplishment. You know what else was an incredible accomplishment? Nathan Mowry, who took that shellacking from Tank, got his deathmatch fantasy on. But I say that, and it sounds dismissive, and it is not. He's been trained, and he sees that moment and skewered it up, and legs on fire. Whoa, legs on fire. Exotic Youth won the inaugural tag titles at a just such huge shit happening, right? But Southern Fried drawing 350 is humongous for them. Does that mean they're on the trajectory going up? Hope so. Wrestling United cracking 100. That's a big deal, folks. GIPW saved their own ass, and they changed ownership. And Shalance wrestled her ass off against the NWA Women's Champion Carmella. And Reka Tahaka returned at Southern Honor. And Action Wrestling killed it, killed it, killed it. And then they were part of an article where they had one of the best matches anywhere. And all this stuff is incredibly huge. Action Wrestling just killing it and not looking back. Scenic City Rumble happening. And Billy Starks won that, right? But Proc the Croc showed how to promote, how to make your spots count, how to be a big fucking deal. And Skrilla and Naja killing it for Nick Patrick's show. And Simon Sermon managing to stay above water of when Richard Borger is acting like a crazy man. There is so much craziness going on. Oh, Amber Nova never mind. There's so much craziness going on. But let's talk about Southern Honor for a minute. 519. That's 2 crowds in a row of over 500. That is a major success and accomplishment. The cruel aspect is catching on there just like it is everywhere else where he's doing his shit. They've got so much to be proud of. And a focused Southern Honor matters. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't issues and problems. Duke wrote a really cool thing which was notes to supplement Rob's report. We had multiple reports on the Action Wrestling. We had a report on GIPW, report on Southern Fried. Still getting the stuff up about Pro South. Folks, it ain't been like this in a long time. And I know people are excited because I'm talking to more people than I ever have. When I have less time to talk, but I still find a way. Keep coming up with funky ass shit like every single day, right? What a healthy state of affairs. Now, Larry and I, as we are wont to do when we talk to each other, we talked about, is this going to last? What's going to happen when the summer hits? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And numbers feel like inevitably they're going to drop a little, but that doesn't take away from the health of things now. And this feeling that, boy, if you can really stick it out, if you can really do your thing. Right now, I said a couple of years ago it was about the haves and have-nots. This year is about if it ain't new, if you ain't growing, you're dying. That's the truth. And we've seen record crowds from Anarchy. We've seen Southern Fried get back to old crowds of glory with much better wrestling and booking. We've seen Southern Honor really not just return to form, but exceed it. The last 2 shows they have drawn in the 500s, which normally it took Rumblejack or their anniversary show to do. That's great. And Action Wrestling, dude, they are a runaway train. There is so much momentum with so many groups. It is incredibly exciting. And there's nothing that can take away from all that. And the groups that are finding ways to survive, GIPW is surviving. And it feels like there's brighter days ahead, right? And of course there's other shows happening. But let me get to this, and then we'll get to my old project in the commentary. I opened up my little tribute to the Warriors, right? I'm gonna talk to him, but this is relevant stuff for everybody else. And I'm not saying anybody's name because right now can you smell that's getting all legal up in this piece? And I have no urge. I almost said I don't have a dog in this fight, and that's not exactly true. But something happened to me today on Monday where I was thinking about all this bullshit, and I was thinking about how horrible it was to call that cop. But then I also was thinking about how at the end of the day, a lot of the problem stems from this. I was pen pals with Noam Chomsky. If you don't know who that is, you can Google him. But he was considered, and still is to many people, the premier academic in the country. Um, Ostensibly an economics professor at MIT. He writes about politics, right? You know, writes about the media and governments and people's relationship to the governments and government's relationship to the media and all this kind of stuff. And he's a very brilliant man. And I've asked him questions not just about politics, but about life advice. When I was going to form my own business and have a wrestling school and a promotion, I asked him what was the best way to go about it, how to hold on to your morality in a business that seemed to defy morality. And he was fascinated by the question. Um, but he said something that was so brilliant that it has stuck with me ever since, and that is war is a result of misunderstanding. There is no war that happens where a misunderstanding hasn't taken place. And he doesn't just mean like, oh, I judged you wrongly or whatever. He means people wouldn't get into wars if they really understood what they were and what their chances were of getting out unscathed. That people too often overestimate themselves and underestimate the other. And that's what causes war, right? And we're seeing this in real time in Russia and Ukraine. Russia thought, Ukraine, we're just going to roll over those motherfuckers, and half of them are just going to jump on our side, and they're finding out that that is not the case, which is going to make for, unfortunately, a protracted, ugly conflict, right? And at the end of the day, people are like, well, they wouldn't have got involved with this if they didn't know they were going to win for sure. There ain't no for sure, Magoo. And so it goes with this conflict that we're going to talk about in Southern Honor. But I'm just talking to the man. I'm not talking about Jeff Bailey. I'm friends with him. And that's part of this discussion, too. You see, there's a number of ways you can see this conflict between the two of them. But here's how I see it. And now James can hear this with an open mind and open ears, or he can just think of what he wants to say, or he can just turn this off and avoid it. But I would advise him not to. And here's why. I'm going to explain so much of what he probably wants to know. And, I mean, unless my phone is lying to me, he tried to call me yesterday. But I worked. I worked from 5 until like 2 in the morning. So, and he didn't leave a message. So I thought maybe he accidentally, I just didn't want to, I mean, what do? I don't even, at that job, I don't even check my phone. Airport job I do all the time. Because I have time to, and I have time to make memes. You could tell I was at the airport job today because every time they drove us back to one concourse to the other, I had time to spit out memes. So I was spitting them out like wildfire. But I'm going to tell you what neither Jeff nor James understand, at least fully. And this is just my opinion. James does not understand that he is a bully. He feels, as bullies do, that he is righteous and that everything he is doing is justified. I do not think he is inherently or at heart or in his core a bad person. However, I would say that he is one of the most annoying and mean-spirited people. His public persona and the way that he talks to people is arrogance. And are there any number of people in the wrestling business and otherwise who are arrogant? Sure. But he is the one who has earned it the least by all estimation and account. And he is the one who is the least self-reflective. But he is very quick to criticize everything, and he is very quick to tell you what you should know and what you shouldn't know. And he delivers it in a tone that does not strike people, for the most part, in the right way. And he would claim that any kind of negative feelings you have towards him are your problem. But any negative feelings he has towards you is an indication of your failure. That's how he comes across. Whether what I just said was accurate or not, that's how it comes across. Certainly comes across that way to me. Are there other people who tend to speak to people in a way that gets perceived as condescending? Yes, I would cite Bill Barron's as an example. But one, Bill's earned a little bit of that. And two, when you really get to know Bill, I mean really get to know Bill, you realize it's not about that. That's just who that dude is. He's just a very articulate guy who has a way of seeing things. But that doesn't mean he can't be flexible. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't understand people enough and take people as they come and treat them as individuals where he can't deal with volatile personalities. Bill has an ability to remove his ego from the act when necessary in order to facilitate things getting done. That's why Bill is very effective in that role. I think Matt Griffin is a guy who comes across as incredibly arrogant, but I think he's learning how to temper that act in favor of, I think the passion that he feels and the pride he feels for what he does manifests itself as arrogance. And what he has learned is it is his personality that is inhibiting the growth of action, and now he has learned how to step out of the way in the appropriate way. So his strengths are now becoming everybody's strengths and lifting. A rising tide lifts all boats, and I think Matt Griffin is spending less time being cocky and having a chip on his shoulder and more time really delegating, giving credit where it's due, but also applying his numerous skills and intellect into making action the best it could be and working well in conjunction with Dylan Hales, Scott Hensley, and others. Gary Lamb, I've rode him many times about being a guy who is getting in his own way and needs to evolve into something else. And I think it is happening. We're hearing less about pointless conflicts that are necessary because that's what I do, dude. I like getting in I like having enemies. And we haven't heard that rhetoric in a long time, and I think it's to its benefit. I think it's to Southern Honor's benefit. I think the thing that happened with the awards was a bit of a humbling thing. Because, yeah, Southern Honor still won stuff, but clearly the tide had turned. And it was about Hankins. And Hankins and Joe Black, I thought, delivered the two finest speeches we've maybe ever heard. And I think Gary Lamb was taken in and humbled by that to an extent. But Gary still got that thing that makes Gary Gary. And it's fucking wonderful. Right? James spends a lot of time criticizing and a lot of time creating narratives that are simply not true. I work for IWE. I work for Tim Blackman, Paige Blackman, and I work alongside Josh Fields, though I say he is in a much more elevated position than I am. I am there to run the locker room. I'm there to be somebody for Tim to bounce things off of. I'm there to give the boys an occasional good finish to make sure things run smooth. I am not going to be there on Saturday, which hurts terribly, but I've started a new job, and I've already arranged with that job. So when they do their show in May, I have that weekend off, which is very gracious of my new job. And they said, you know, if you just let us know, we probably would have given you that weekend, but I'm about making a good impression at this new job. You know, with all the stuff that I dealt with all of my legal troubles, and then COVID hit, so I couldn't clear all that shit up. It was impossible to get a real job. I had to like, cobble stuff together. It was hell, right? And in the midst of this hell, I'm having James constantly running his mouth. But something that really bothered me is his indication and his implication, along with people like Nick and Myron and like that, that somehow anything that Larry Goodman was involved with, whether it be the awards, which James tried to boycott, try to rally people behind this thing that people enjoy and that have become more and more inclusive, and more people have voted in this thing, and the boys are excited. And he tried to boycott that shit out of his own personal bullshit. with the implication that somehow Larry is culpable. Either Larry is corrupt, as I am corrupt, supposedly, or Larry is being duped. Larry Goodman is a grown ass man who took the thing that he and Rich Tate started, put that motherfucker on his back, and has brought us to this point with it. Do I contribute? Does Rob Rod contribute? Does Jabari now contribute? Does Duke contribute? Does Jeff contribute and occasionally write a thing, and do other people join in? And does Azrael's girl chime in with the freaking Puerto Rican news and all this other? Of course. And now what are you getting? Multiple reports from the same show. This smattering of reports for everyone. And then guys like Jabari now chiming in and bringing up issues. And now, when you look at the Tipping Point broadcast, and by the way, when we hit July, that's going to be 8 motherfucking years we've been doing that thing. How long? 8 years. How many leagues have we outlasted? How many people's wrestling careers have we outlasted? How many podcasts and vlogs have we outlasted? We outlasted them all, baby. That's something to be proud of. And when you look at the people that we've interviewed, so to cast any aspersions at Larry Goodman, my response is always fuck you. But I have to temper that, right? But I'm not going to talk about Larry. Larry doesn't need me to defend him, and I think Georgia wrestling history doesn't need me to defend him. I want to talk about Tim Blackman, and I want to talk about Paige Blackman. I want to talk about IWE, because those are good people. And the fact that James casts aspersions on them, I see the numbers, I see the people there. So not only is what he's saying not true, him and that other fucking dickhead, not true. And when I say other dickhead, who I do not mean is Joshua Hancock. Any dealings I've had with him or anything I've heard about him have been nothing but positive. In fact, I dare say, if not for James, the reputation of Viral would be much improved. I'll get back to that later. But Tim Blackman treats the people that work for him like partners, and he treats them incredibly well. He pays a fair wage. You never have to debate with him about that kind of shit. He treats the boys well. Around the holidays, he had a catered meal in the locker room. Not for a big show, a special show, just because. And his wife is intimately involved in that promotion. And they give everybody a great experience that come there. And nobody can tell me fucking different. And it is a show that has improved, and it is a show that continues to improve its attendance. And you know what? They're going to more than double up what fucking Viral did at their last show. That's a fact. Augusta Wrestling is IWE. Now, James can be mad about that, and he can say shit, but let me say this. So Viral had a long-standing feud with PWX and Brian Kanabrowski, which James has said horrible things about on multiple occasions. He's fighting with them, fighting with Livewire, fighting with IWE. At what point, you know, they say in poker, if you look around the table and you don't know who the sucker is you. Well, I say, if you're in Augusta and in that area, and you are the one who's fighting with everybody, who's the fucking dickhead and who's probably in the wrong? Who's fighting with everybody? So you guys are the only lone lighthouse of justice and light, and everybody else is abusing their people. PWX is what? They're wrong because what? Because they run these shows with fucking hundreds of people and well-regarded matches, and the boys are fucking excited to be there? And IWE's vastly improved and everybody's fucking excited, and Overkill really fucking got their start there, and they're putting on a fucking main event that's got Alexander Hammerstone and O'Shea Edwards and Joe Black and fucking Slim J. There's a problem there, and the fucking Ugly Ducklings do their shit and it's amazing, and fucking Exotic Youth are making their way, like. But here's what I feel bad about. I'm the one who tells Tim, when James says his bullshit, no, don't respond, Tim. Don't respond publicly, it looks bad. And it eats Tim up. And the sad thing is, James would be happy to hear that. Oh, I'm getting to him. It is such petty nonsense. No, it's because Tim cares about what he does. And he knows he treats people well. And the boys know it too. But at the end of the day, the boys have to worry about their bookings. And I get that. I don't blame them. But Tim doesn't have people who publicly stick up for him because he's not quite in the club yet. And part of my job, implied, never explicitly said, is to get IWE in the fucking club. And so I've worked hard to do that. Yes, I have. People say conflict of interest. At the end of the day with the awards, the boys vote and the boys nominate. And I am one person on the nomination committee. And by the way, the nomination committee, whose idea was that? Mine. Who decided who should be invited on it? I did. Who replaced Nick and Myron once they decided they didn't want to do it anymore? I did. And who did I replace them with? Two people who were much more prominent, much more knowledgeable about the fucking wrestling scene anyway, and have a really big stake in it. And who have opinions more often than not that are completely different than mine. I take that shit really seriously. And it doesn't put it above criticism. That's the difference between me and James. For James, he is beyond reproach. I know this position that I put myself in here, doing this shit that is fucking unique. Yeah. That's why you never heard me get fucking angry and really bash the ones that were trying to fuck my life up by bringing up the fact that I was arrested. Even though they did it in the most weaselly way possible. And even though James lied and told me over the phone, he had nothing to do with spreading that around. When I know he did. But he did rat out the other people that were involved. But that's neither here nor there. But that is true. In quiet moments, James is great. And when I've talked to him before, when I could get past his thing of having to manipulate and feeling the need to have leverage and all of this other bullshit, in there is a beating heart of a decent person. But up front, he's an asshole and an undeserved one at that. And it doesn't have to be that way. His petty thing that he keeps up with him and IWE, it diminishes him. It hasn't diminished IWE. And there's no cheating going on. They're just outdrawing. And they're just working harder. And they're just working with the boys instead of trying to work the boys. And Tim deliberately keeps himself out of shit. He will take a bump for the heels. But he sure as fuck didn't book himself in the main event of some cage match, which completely fucking knocked their crowd down the next show because they left the crowd with nothing to come back for. That's not Tim. He's trying to learn to do this shit, but he knows a little something too. And if you heard the speeches that he gives the guys before the show, he cares, and Paige cares. And that's a real thing. They work together. And the people that work for Tim don't just do it for a check. The Danny Mead and those guys who show up and put that shit together, and the people who work the concession stand. I know I'm going on and on about IWE because it bothers me that James just keeps picking at it. It's petty and it's tiny and it's small. And that is just one symptom of the continued behavior. And this thing betwixt he and Jeff, it can be summed up like this. James just didn't know when to shut the fuck up. And they are different breeds, those two. I'm friends with Jeff, good friends with Jeff, and I love Jeff. And we are legitimate friends, not just fuck around friends. We're real friends. And at our age, it's harder to make those ties, right? But we've done it. Even though Jeff and I are very different people in so many ways. And I could see the conflict arising. It's why Jeff does not really go online that much. Because he warrants and demands respect. And James is almost incapable of showing it to anybody. And he fucked around and found out that his little game of this sort of Aspergery thing of not quite getting social cues or not caring about them, and then this false bravado bullshit and this keyboard warrior shit and big talk and constantly bragging about, oh, now I'm in a position where I can expose people and this kind of fucking horseshit. But at the end of the day, the truth is, I know what happened. And what happened was James' body and mind betrayed him. When Jeff came at him, yelling and all that energy, James shut down, whimpered, and then afterwards ran away crying. And I'm not saying this to humiliate him. I'm saying this to let him know that's your body and mind failing you because you've never been confronted like that in your life. And it's not just bragging to say it, but people like me and Jeff have had conflicts. Many got our ass whipped and whipped some ass. And we had to develop our fucking wit to a razor's edge. Not just for shits and giggles, not just so we could pat ourselves on the back and talk about fucking Star Wars. It was a survival thing. It was a wrestling thing. And the number one rule back in the day of wrestling is you can't lose. Verbal confrontations or otherwise. So that was always a ticking time bomb. But I understand James' position to an extent. Calling the cop is one of the most pussified, lame things ever. But I understand why that happened. Because at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with justice. It had nothing to do with, defund the police. But none of that entered the head. What entered the head was, I was humiliated. I feel violated. I'm mad at my own self, and it's going to eat me up that I did nothing. I didn't physically resist. I didn't verbally resist. I literally got shut down and my mind went blank, and it's terrifying. There's only two ways to deal with that. You either mull it out through therapy or through yourself and you get through it so the next time you're better, or you just pretend it was everybody else's fault. And what we've seen from James publicly constantly is it's everybody else. Everybody else is lesser morality than he is. He is the smartest, he is the most moral, he is this, he is that. And hypocrisy abounds, as it tends to with guys like that. And James, what I'm saying is this. Fucking knock it off. And fucking smarten up. Are you going to take the last few days and displace your anger and your ire and your genius wit and come after somebody else? I would imagine it won't be Jeff. I imagine you have to place that shit somewhere. You're not going to place it at Gary, who didn't help you out, right? You're not going to place it. You're going to try to be strategic. And maybe it will be me. But I will say this. I got a real fucking life. And it's one that you couldn't understand. And I'm not saying my life is better and your life is worse or anything like that. I'm just saying mine is different, right? I'm not a 40-hour-a-week motherfucker. Right now, I'm fucking working my ass off. People use that expression all the time. And I laugh when other people use it because they don't know what that means. I do. Yeah. 8 hours. Anytime I only work one job, I call that a day off. That's the truth. But this isn't a wham, poor woe is me. It's just a different perspective. I got kids and all this shit. I would advise, James, tell less, show more. Show, don't tell. Instead of just telling people what they should be doing, how they should be thinking, why don't you show them how you live your life is better instead of just saying that it is? I can tell people how you should raise your kids, but I don't. You know what I do? I just show people how my kids are with each other. And people draw their own fucking conclusions. And I'm proud to say that multiple people have contacted me and goes like, man, the way that you're so proud of your kids and the way that you go out of your way to interact with them and the way that you learn from them as well as they learn from you and the way that you handled Leo being trans and all the rest of that. I don't brag. I'm just proud of those fucking kids. And that love shines through. And other parents, I don't say don't hit your kids like you do. By the way, I agree with you completely. 100% on that. But I know parents and I know people, and nobody fucking likes being told anything. It inspires resistance. Just like it inspires resistance in you with anybody who tries to say anything. You fucking want to fucking batter heads with them. And what is the result of that? War is misunderstanding. And in the extreme case of Jeff, what it led to was a conflict that you could not handle in the slightest. Best defense no be there, right? There's a good guy there. But I'll be honest. When I think of James, I don't think of a good guy. I think of a guy who seems to live for making people a little more miserable because he thinks that that's what power is. And frankly, that's pathetic. And that's beneath anybody, much less a guy who's pretty smart. What happened in this conflict? That's going to be the subject of our movie here at the end. Yes, I made a little movie. But the most important part of this video to me, besides how great Georgia Wrestling is doing, is learn. Fucking self-evaluate. Take in outside viewpoints. One of the greatest things about being friends with Jeff, and this would probably fucking embarrass him to say it, sorry, I'm going to say it anyway, is that he and I learn from each other. We fucking disagree about shit. And we modify our viewpoints. And we check in with each other. And we check each other. Did I check Jeff in any way about this whole conflict that happened? You're damn right I did. But I'm not going to tell you what the fuck that was. And you know what? Jeff mulled this shit over and felt a bunch of different ways about it. He doesn't bury that shit deep down. Just because he's a private guy doesn't mean he's a guy who's closed off to himself and the people who are close to him. The opposite. He doesn't have to pretend he's loved. He's loved. He doesn't have to pretend that he's respected. He's respected. And he's got the most important kind of respect. That's self-respect. I would suspect, James, and this is perhaps overstepping, that there is an element of yourself that you don't like very much, and it manifests in you displacing the things in yourself that you don't like and transposing those ideas onto other people so you can point your finger. When the truth is, the things that you accuse others of are things that you see within yourself. Maybe I'm wrong about that, maybe not. I will say when it comes to Tim and IWE and Tim's family, you are dead wrong. When it comes to anything that goes with Georgia wrestling history, especially that involves Larry Goodman, you're dead fucking wrong. And if you're going to spend your time with these petty conflicts and this stupid shit, my God, I mean, I should be above that. Goodness knows I'm a fucking busy dude. But it doesn't have to be a fucking war. Because I'm telling you, the fight that you need to fight is within yourself. And you can be great instead of just pretending that you are. Because the conflict between you and Jeff showed one fucking thing. At the end of the day, Jeff's legend is enhanced and you just become a footnote in his legend. That's the truth of what happened. And you got exposed as being a legend in your own mind only. Legend status isn't something that you can just say. It's something that you gotta earn. And it starts from fucking acting like one. And I hope you take the note and try. And if you want to talk to me about it, I'm more than willing. Everybody, including James, he may not like it. In the end, it is just for fucking funs. And funsies it is. This has been Full Disclosure. Enjoy.